Good morning, friends. In the previous lecture, we discussed that there are two fundamental laws in electrostatics. Those are Coulomb's law and Gauss law. And we found that these two laws are discovered or formulated by two very eminent scientists. The first one, Charles Augustin de Coulomb, and second one, John Carl Friedrich Gauss. In the honor of those scientists, those laws are named as Coulomb's law and Gauss law. So these two are the fundamental laws. Once you understand how these two laws and how to apply these two laws on electrostatics problems, then it will be very simple to learn this particular subject. Then we also covered in the previous lecture what exactly electrostatic field is. Electrostatic field, in the previous lecture we discussed that it is a field created by a static electric charge. Static electric charge means what? Static electric charge means what? The charge which is stationed, it is positioned at a fixed location. For example, charge A, charge B, C are shown on the screen. They are fixed at one location. For example, it is fixed at x1, y1, z1. It may be fixed at x2, y2, z2 and so on. So these charges are not moving anywhere. These are fixed at one location. That means they are static. Due to such static charges, such a electric field is created. An electric field is created around it. Electric field is nothing but an area around that charge, in which if some other charge, if we bring inside this field, then this particular electric field exerts some force on this second charge. If this charge is tried to be moved inside the field created by this charge B, then also it will experience some force. Okay, so electric field is nothing but an area wherein if some other charge is brought, then it will experience some force. Okay, so why this electric field is called as static electric field or electrostatic field? Because this field is static in nature. That means if we measure what is the force exerted on this charge, for example Q, if this charge Q is brought somewhere here, then what is the force exerted by charge B on this charge at this location? Whatever may be the value, suppose the force exerted by charge B on this charge Q is suppose 10, okay, at t equal to 0, then if we measure the force exerted by charge B on this charge Q at this location, after some time, maybe at t equal to 10, at t equal to 20 second, t equal to 100 second, each time we will find that force at this particular location due to charge B is same, 10. That means field parameters as well as field is static in nature. All field parameters will be constant at particular location because the charge is stationary. Charge is not moving anywhere. Charge is not moving this side or charge is not moving this side. So it is fixed. That's why the field created by such a static charge, static electric charge, is called as electrostatic field. If the charge is for example, here only few lines are shown, electric flux lines are shown. Here the electric flux lines are large in number, and here in the charge in this electric field the electric flux lines are largest as compared to other two. How this is possible? Because this charge may be of 1 coulomb, for example, this charge may be of 10 coulomb, this charge may be of 100 coulomb. So if the charge capacity increases, then the electric field becomes more stronger. More the number of flux lines, more will be the more strong the electric field is. Okay, so here in this particular diagram, the electrostatic field created by charge C will be stronger in nature as compared to other two. This is the meaning of electrostatic field. Then we also covered in the last lecture one very important application of electrostatic field, that is photocopying machine or laser printer. Okay, and we discussed in the previous lecture as like electrostatic, in magnetostatics also two fundamental laws are very important. Those are Biot-Savart law and Ampere-Circuital law. Biot-Savart law is analogous to Coulomb's law and Ampere-Circuital law is analogous to Gauss law. Okay, analogous means they are fundamentally on the same line. They are very equivalent to each other. Means Coulomb's law in electrostatic is equivalent to Biot-Savart law in magnetostatic. Similarly, Gauss law in electrostatic is equivalent to Ampere-Circuital law in magnetostatics. Who discovered these laws? We discussed in the previous lecture. This law is discovered by two scientists, Biot scientist and Felix Savart. Both were French physicists as well as mathematician. And the Ampere-Circuital law is developed by André-Marie Ampere, who was also French mathematician. In the honor of those scientists and their discoveries, those laws are called as Biot-Savart law and Ampere-Circuital law. So these two are the fundamental laws in magnetostatics. Once you understand these two laws, you will automatically understand how the magnetostatic field works and what are their applications, and you will be able to solve the problems on magnetostatics if the fundamentals of these two laws is clear. How the magnetostatic field look like? Obviously, even though we discuss this electrostatic field, we cannot see this electrostatic field with our naked eyes. Okay, these are imaginary lines. These flux lines are imaginary lines. We cannot see with our naked eyes, but we will experience. How we will experience? How we will experience this electrostatic field? Suppose some charge, if some charge Q of 2 coulomb, if it is brought inside the electrostatic field of this charge A, then it will experience some force. Okay, it will experience force of attraction or force of repulsion. Suppose this charge is 1 coulomb, positive 1 coulomb, and this is also positive 1 coulomb, then automatically this charge A will exert force on charge Q if it is brought inside this field. Similarly, on the same principle, we can also imagine that the electric field created by this 2 coulomb charge will be like this, and these will be the electric flux lines for this charge. So these two fields will interact with each other and they will exert force on each other. In this way we can experience electrostatic fields. Okay, we cannot see these fields with our naked eyes. Similarly, on the same line, magnetostatic field also we can experience. We cannot see it with naked eyes. So what exactly magnetostatic field is? Magnetostatic field is a field created by steady current. This we covered in the last lecture. Steady current means, for example, this is conductor, and through this conductor, suppose 10 ampere current is flowing. 10 ampere current is flowing. Then there is automatically the field is created around that conductor. And we have studied this in 10th or 11th or 12th. Whenever a current carrying conductor is kept in our right hand, then if the outstretched thumb indicates the direction of current, then the curled finger indicates the direction of magnetic field. This we studied in the 10th or 12th. That means whenever current flows through the conductor, automatically magnetic field is created. If the current flowing through this conductor is stable, steady or constant, static means steady means constant, then the field created by this magnetic field, this charge, this current also steady in nature. So magnetostatic means magnetic field is static in nature. That means it is stable. That means what? If we measure the magnetic force somewhere here, for example, there is some north pole or south pole, one magnet is there. If I bring this magnet inside this area, then automatically the magnetic field of this magnet and magnetic field created by this current will exert force of attraction or repulsion on each other. These two fields, the field of this and field of this, interact with each other. Okay, this we can experience. That means if there is a force of repulsion, then this magnet will be thrown outside. Some force is exerted on it. Okay, that means this field of this magnet as well as field created by this steady current, we cannot see with our naked eyes, but we will experience that there are interaction between these two, and due to this interaction they exert force on each other, maybe force of attraction or force of repulsion. Okay, so if I bring this magnet somewhere here, for example at this location, and if the force experienced by this magnet is suppose 3, okay, at t equal to 0, then automatically if we measure the force for the same setup for the same magnet, then at t equal to 1 second again we will find that the force is 3. If we measure the force at t equal to 100 second, again we will find the same force is exerted by this magnetic field on this particular magnet at the same location, it is 3. That means magnetic field is constant. Magnetic field is constant. All the magnetic field parameters, their values are constant at particular location. That means the field is steady. And these are called as magnetic lines of force or magnetic flux lines. These are imaginary lines. Higher the value of this current, more magnetic flux lines will be created. Okay, and these magnetic flux lines represent the magnetostatic field. This we covered in the last lecture, and we also discussed that similar terms, whatever terms we are going to study in case of electrostatic field, the analogous terms are also there in magnetostatic fields. For example, in electrostatic field you will find the force parameter. In magnetostatic field also we will find magnetic force, electric force, magnetic force. The first law is Coulomb's law. Here you will find Biot-Savart law. There in electrostatic you will find Gauss law. Here you will find Ampere-Circuitel law. These two are analogous. Electric force, magnetic force. Electric charge. Who created electrostatic field? Electric charge. Who created magnetic field? Current flowing through the conductor. There you will find electric field intensity. What is the intensity of electric field? There in magnetostatic you will find magnetic field intensity, H bar or H, E bar or E. Here you will find electric flux density term, D bar, and here you will find magnetic flux density. Okay, relationship between D and E is like this in electrostatic. Similarly, you will find B and H are related with this formula. In electrostatic, you will find electric potential V, and here you will find magnetic potential Vm. Okay, the formula is this. Here the formula is this. Electric flux lines we discussed. In electrostatic there are electric flux lines. They are related with D bar, Q and Cv in this fashion. In magnetostatics there are magnetic flux lines. These lines are imaginary lines. Electric flux lines as well as magnetic flux lines are imaginary lines, and their relations are also there. They are analogous. Okay. Electric current is shown by like this, and the voltage is shown with this formula. So C is capacitance is related with electrostatic, and inductance is related with magnetostatic. Energy density concept is there in electrostatic. Magnetic energy density concept is present in magnetostatics. Poisson's equation is there for electrostatic field, and Poisson's equation concept is also applicable in case of magnetostatic field. So on an average, once you understand electrostatics, automatically you will understand magnetostatics. Okay, for that you have to learn this electrostatics very seriously. Once you understand these terms and all the fundamentals and all the laws, automatically it will be easier to learn magnetostatics. Now let us come back to our today's point, Coulomb's law. So what exactly Coulomb's law is? Coulomb's law gives you the force between two point charges. What exactly the meaning of point charge? Point charge means a charge which is concentrated at one point. Okay. Suppose the charge Q1 is 10 coulomb, then total 10 coulomb is located at this particular point. Suppose charge Q2 is 100 coulomb, then total 100 coulomb charge is located at a point here. Okay, that means these two are point charges. Sometimes you may find later on the 10 coulomb charge, suppose Q1 is 10 coulomb, like this. Okay. Sometimes this 10 coulomb charge, positive 10 coulomb charge, is distributed uniformly on this line. So what is the total charge on this line? 10 coulomb. And here what is the total charge at this point? It is also 10 coulomb. Okay. So this charge is called as point charge, and this kind of charge is called as line charge. It is also of magnitude 10 coulomb. It is also of magnitude 10 coulomb. So for what Coulomb's law is applicable? Coulomb's law is not applicable to such line charge. It is not also applicable to surface charge. Suppose this 10 coulomb can also be distributed uniformly on a plane surface. So this can also be a 10 coulomb charge, but it is called as surface charge. It is not a point charge. This is a line charge, this is a point charge, and this is a surface charge. So Coulomb's law is applicable to only point charges. So what exactly Coulomb's law is? Coulomb's law states that force between 2 point charges Q1 and Q2 is proportional with, is along the, yes, what is this? It is along the line joining them. Second, it is directly proportional with product of magnitudes of two charges, and it is inversely proportional with square of the distance between them. So this is the Coulomb's law. For example, here you find charge Q1 is there and charge Q2 is there. What is the distance between them? For example, distance between Q1 and Q2 is R12. Okay. What are the position vectors of Q1 from the origin? It is R1, for example. From this origin, the position vector of this point is R2. Okay. So the force exerted by this force exerted by Q2 on Q1 will be F21, and the force exerted by Q2 will be F12. So how it is possible? Because the electric field created by this charge Q1, because as two charges are point charges and they are static, that means they are fixed at one location. Charge Q2 is also fixed at one location. So there might be some electric field of Q1 like this. Okay, and electric field of Q2 may be like this around it. We have studied the concept of electric field. That means the Q2 is somewhere inside the field created by Q1, and Q1 is also present inside the charge, inside the field created by Q2. That means they will interact with each other. Okay, Q1 is going inside the field of Q2. Okay, the electric field is present inside this area, and field created by Q2 is also present inside the area created by Q1. That's why they will exert force on each other. The force can be, this force can be force of attraction or force of repulsion, depending upon the polarity. If both charges are positive, if this charge is also positive in nature, positive 1 coulomb, positive 2 coulomb like this, then they will exert a force of repulsion. So the force exerted by Q2 will be in this direction, and force exerted by Q1 on Q2 will be in this direction. If one of the charge is positive and suppose this charge is negative, then there will be force of attraction. That means this force F12 will be in this direction, and F21 will be in this direction. Okay, so this way you have to understand. So what is the statement? The statement, again we will take a look on Coulomb's law. You see, the Coulomb's law states that force between two charges Q1 and Q2 is along the line joining them, okay. For example, this is Q1 and this is Q2. Then if first charge is positive and second charge is positive, then force exerted by this first charge on second charge will be along the line joining these two charges, okay. Similarly, force exerted by charge 2 on charge Q1 will be along the line joining between them, and that means in this line, okay. It is proportional to product of magnitudes of two charges. Here you can find F is equal to, it is directly proportional to Q1 and Q2, okay. It is inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them. Suppose the distance between charge 1 and charge 2 is r, then Coulomb's law states that the force exerted by these two charges on each other is inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them. And what exactly K is? It is a proportionality constant, okay. Q1 and Q2 are measured in coulombs, while the distance is measured in meters and force is measured in newtons. These are SI units. And K is found to be equal to 1 upon 4 pi epsilon 0. This you have to remember, 1 upon 4 pi epsilon 0. And what exactly this epsilon 0 is? Epsilon 0 is permittivity of free space. That means if in between these two charges, what kind of medium is here? Suppose if we assume that in between these two there is a free space, then permittivity of free space is denoted by epsilon 0. Okay, so the total formula is F is equal to K Q1 Q2 divided by R square, where K is what? 1 upon 4 pi epsilon 0. Epsilon 0 value is 8.854 into 10 raised to minus 12, or it is also equal to 10 raised to minus 9 divided by 36 pi farad per meter. If you do this calculation on your calculator, you will find this particular value. So for numericals on Coulomb's law, if we want to save the time, you have to use this particular value for epsilon 0. Use 10 raised to minus 9 divided by 36 pi, okay. Or K is equal to 1 upon 4 pi epsilon 0, or straight away you can directly use K is equal to 9 into 10 raised to 9, okay. But remember, if your medium in between the two charges, or the medium in which the charges are kept, if it is free space, then and then only you can use this epsilon 0. Otherwise you have to use simply epsilon, and this epsilon will be then equal to epsilon 0 into epsilon r, okay. So this is Coulomb's law. Let me clear this, okay. Now this equation, therefore, if we put the value of K in this previous formula, if you put the value of K here, you will get F is equal to Q1 Q2 upon 4 pi epsilon 0 R square. If point charges, for example Q1 and Q2, are located at points having position vectors, we have studied the concept of position vector in the previous lectures. Position vector is nothing but a vector, okay, directed from origin towards the given point. So what is the position vector of Q1 now? R1 bar, or simply R1. Similarly for Q2 it is R2, okay. Then the force F12 exerted by charge 1 on charge 2 is due to Q1 is shown by this figure. F12 is the force exerted by charge Q1 on Q2, so it is directed along the line joining between them, okay, and it is proportional with product of magnitudes of these two divided by 4 pi epsilon 0 r square. And what is this term? AR12. It is a unit vector. Here you find this is a magnitude of force. Magnitude of force. Okay, because the statement is here force between two charges is equal to product of magnitudes of q1 q2 and inversely proportional to square of the distance between them. But what exactly this point number 1 is? Along the line joining them. In which direction the force is? Along the line joining. That means direction is mentioned. Okay, what is this direction here? Unit vector along F12. Suppose F12 vector starts here, ends here, then unit vector along this vector F12 bar can be shown like this, whose magnitude will be 1. So this is unit vector along F12 bar. Okay, so this will gives you the direction of F12. Now here generally in the problems the magnitude of this charge q1 is given, charge q2 is given, 4 pi epsilon 0 is a constant term. So what is remaining to find out? What is left to find out? You have to find out the value of r. You have to find out the value of AR12. So how would you find out? Obviously for that you require this r bar vector or R12 vector you require. Okay, so R12, how will you find out? R12 can be found out with the help of this distance vector formula. We have covered this particular displacement vector formula in the previous lecture. If you can recall back, in that particular lecture we discussed what do you mean by position vector and what do you mean by displacement vector. So displacement vector R12 is nothing but this vector. It starts from q1 and it ends up to q2. So this is R12 bar. So this is the distance vector between displacement vector between q1 and q2. So it is obtained by r2 minus r1. So r2 coordinates you know, position vector if you know r2. Suppose the position vector, if the coordinates of this q2 will be suppose 1 1 1, and suppose the coordinates of q1 is suppose 2 2 2, then how will you find out the R2 bar? R2 bar or R2 is equal to 1 ax cap plus 1 ay cap plus 1 az cap. Similarly R1 will be given as 2 ax cap 2 ay cap plus 2 az cap. So in this way, if you put here these two vectors, position vectors, then you will get which vector? R12. Sometimes these vectors are denoted like this, or sometimes the vectors are denoted in this fashion: R12 bar, R2 bar and R1 bar. Both are one and the same thing. Once you get this vector, then you can find out its magnitude. So you know how to find out the magnitude of any vector. For that you require this square root sign and do the squares of individual components of that vector in each direction. In this way you can find out the magnitude of any vector. So magnitude of R12 bar will be like this. You can denote this magnitude with the same name as well, no problem, R12. So it's up to you. Then unit vector, how will you find out unit vector? For any vector, divide the vector by its magnitude. You will get AR12. Okay, if you put these two terms, magnitude and unit vector, in this formula, you will get the complete F12 bar. So again we will discuss how to use this particular formula. How to use this formula? In this formula, we want to find out the force between 1 and 2. Force exerted by charge 1 on charge 2. For that, in this formula, Q1 and Q2 is generally given in the problem. so it is constant. 4 pi epsilon 0 is also constant. So what is required to find out? What is left to find out? Only you require R and AR12. Out of this, what is this R? What is this R? R is a magnitude of vector R bar, and AR12 is a unit vector along that R bar. Okay, so what is, only you have to find out R bar. R bar is a distance vector between 1 and 2 charge. Here in this case it is denoted by R12 bar. Once you find out this R12 bar with this formula, then you can very easily find out its magnitude, and as well as you can also very easily find out its unit vector. Once you find out this, you put here this, you put these values here in this formula, then you will get, automatically you will get the force between two charges. Okay, by substituting 4.5 into 4.4, where is 4.5? This is total is 4.5. 4.5 consists of magnitude of R and magnitude unit vector. Okay, if you put this R here, if you put this unit vector, suppose you put this unit vector here, then what will happen? This R will be here R square, and this denominator R will get added in the power. That's why it will become R cube. Okay, so you do this practice on your paper, that you put here, you put this here, then you will get this particular formula. So at the denominator side you will get cube of R. Here there was R square, but if you put if you keep this R square as it is, and if you put unit vector somewhere here, then automatically this R magnitude gets multiplied with this R square. Therefore the formula will become Q1 Q2 4 pi epsilon 0 R cube R12. In this way we can use this Coulomb's law. And this is more simplified formula for Coulomb's law, where what I changed in the previous formula, I replaced this R12 by R2 minus R1, and this R will be replaced by, then R is nothing but a magnitude. Okay, R is a magnitude, and here R is a vector. Okay, so this magnitude is replaced by magnitude of R2 minus R1 cube. So this is the same formula. So what are the important conclusions of this Coulomb's law? It is found that F21, the force F21 on Q1 due to Q2 is given by the magnitudes are same. F12 magnitude and F21 magnitude are same, and direction is F21, AR21. F21 direction is AR21, because unit vector is generally for R bar vector. For R bar vector, the unit vector is written in this fashion, AR or AR cap. So AR, this 21 are attached here. Okay, so in this way it is found that F21 and F12, these vectors, these are vectors, you can denote it by bar also, no problem. So F21 bar is exactly equal to F12 bar. The difference is only negative sign. Negative sign means the magnitudes of these two forces will be same, but the directions will be different. Directions will be opposite. For example, what is the direction of F21 bar? Direction of F21 bar will be AR21. And what is the direction of F12 bar? It will be AR12, where this AR21 and AR12 are exactly equal but with negative sign. That's why these forces are exactly equal, but they are opposite in nature. That means this, I mean to explain you this particular concept, because if you check here, these two forces are moving away from each other in the same direction. Direction is same, line joining between them same, but the direction of F21 bar is here and F12 bar is on this side. So therefore their unit vector of this force is here, and unit vector of this force is somewhere here. They are opposite in nature. The next conclusion is, like charges always repel each other while unlike charges attract each other. Here it is shown in this diagram. If both the charges are same with same polarity, they will repel each other. Directions of their forces are 180 degree apart, exactly opposite. If both the charges are of different polarity, they will attract each other. That means force exerted by one charge on the second or second charge on the first will be towards each other. Likewise, so this is the concept behind this point. The distance r between charged bodies Q1 and Q2, the distance r between two charges must be large compared with linear dimensions of bodies. This need to remember this because distance between charges Q1 and Q2 generally we show by distance r, and Q1 Q2 must be static in nature for this Coulomb's law. That means two charges must be static in nature, means they are stationed, they are positioned at one location, they are not moving. The signs of Q1 Q2 must be taken into account while doing the calculation. Now next point is, if there are, in the previous example there were only two charges Q1 and Q2. If in your system, so that means in this system, in this total system there are only two charges, charge 1 and charge 2. So what happens if there are more than two charges in your system? Here in this system, remember, only two charges are involved. Okay, if in your system more than two charges are there, then how you can use this particular Coulomb's law formula? We will look at this. If we have more than 2 point charges, we can use principle of superposition to determine the total force on particular charge. The principle states that if there are n charges, n number of charges, Q1, Q2, dash 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 Qn, located at one location, they are static in nature, they are point charges as well as static in nature, then with position vectors r1, r2, dash dash rn, then the resultant force means total force due to all of these charges, so total force will be F1 bar plus F2 bar plus F3 bar plus dash dash Fn bar. The force exerted by this Q1 on this charge Q will be F1, obviously. Let me write this. Total force on charge Q due to the Q1 will be, for example, if we write by F1 plus, what is the force exerted by charge Q2 on F2, Q2 on Q? It will be, suppose it is F2 bar. What is the force exerted by charge Qn on this charge Q dash dash? It will be, suppose, Fn bar. Then the total force on charge Q due to the whole system will be addition of all the individual forces. That means it is a law of principle of superposition. Okay. Now what the formula of F1 will be in that case? The formula of F1 will be, yes, what is the F1? F1 is a force. Which is this force? F1 is a force exerted by charge Q1 on Q. Therefore the formula will become Q into Q1, product of magnitudes of two charges, divided by 4 pi epsilon 0 R 1 square into A R unit vector of that AR1. Similarly, F2 bar will be Q into Q2 divided by 4 pi epsilon 0 R2 square into direction will be AR2 cap. Similarly for the rest of the charges. Okay, so the total formula can be summarized in this fashion. You see, Q into Q1 R minus R1, that means R is a position vector of Q, R1 is a position vector of Q1, divided by R minus R1 cube. Direction means this is a magnitude. Which formula we used here? This formula we used here. This formula. Force between charge Q1 and Q2 will be equal to Q1 Q2 into R2 minus R1. These two vectors, these two are, remember, these two are the vectors. These two are vectors. Divide by 4 pi epsilon 0. 4 pi epsilon 0 is a magnitude. This is a constant, and this is the magnitude. Okay, which magnitude? R2 minus R1 magnitude, and you have to take cube of it. Okay, so this formula is this. So for charge Q1, so F1 bar is equal to Q into Q1 R minus R1 4 pi epsilon 0 R minus R1 cube. What is F2 bar? F2 bar is the force exerted by charge Q2 on charge Q. So it will be equal to Q into Q2 R minus R2 4 pi epsilon 0 R minus R2 cube plus dash 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 dash, and this is the force exerted by, this is Fn bar, force exerted by charge Qn on Q. So the formula becomes this. So if you summarize this particular formula, it will be something like this. Q is constant in all formula, divide by 4 pi epsilon 0. Okay, summation K varies from 1 to n because there are n charges. Okay, Qk varies from 1 to n, so it will become Q1. If K is equal to 2, then it will become Q2. Likewise, R minus Rk cube. So I will suggest you to write, first of all, whenever there are in your system 2 charges or 3 charges are mentioned, first of all you write down this formula first, then you write down this formula. Don't directly use this formula. So step by step you need to solve the problem. Otherwise there will be mistakes in your calculation. Now next is the concept of electric field intensity. So we will stop here. In the next lecture we will discuss what is the concept of electric field intensity. Thank you.